Welcome to the Spirit of Truth video podcast. Joining us today is my good friend Jeremy Daigle. He's a Urantia-inspired musician, bartender, and an all-around awesome person. So stick around, it's going to be great. Welcome back. Joining me today is my good friend Jeremy Daigle. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, it's great to have you here. For some of you guys who don't know, Jeremy and I are friends. We live in the Colorado area together. We're roommates. He does professional sound engineering. He's in a bunch of bands, great Urantia-inspired musician. And then I do the video stuff. So we've been a nice combo ever since we met.
Yeah, for real, the AV combination always helps, especially if it's AV combination inspired by Urantia Book.
Yeah.
And you could just take that to another level.
Yeah, that's something that, I know you and I share in common, that we like to share the revelation in our own skill set in a way that we can attempt to uplift the quality of thinking, like this show. And for those of you who don't know, Jeremy actually wrote the song that's on the intro for the Spirit of Truth video podcast. And the name of that song is Listen, right?
Yes, yep.
And if you don't know the lyrics in the beginning of the song, because maybe you can't hear them, it is, I will listen if you speak to me, speak the truth, right?
Yeah, that's it. It reminded me when you had JJ on last week and he went over those lyrics, I was like, yes, I think that's it. Because after not when I was recording it, I was listening to it over and over and over again. It was like instilled. Now it's just like kind of forget about it because I'm working on new stuff now. So I was like, what were those lyrics?
Right.
No,
right.
that was it. So
yeah,
it was nice to have someone like, oh my God, I love your lyrics. I was like, thanks. I was like, my intention from first doing that was not to be like, oh yeah, this song's great. I'm just writing it out because it needs to get out. Like it's something that's inside of me. Those lyrics actually came from writing that song without any lyrics to it. And I would just listen to that track on the subway in New York when I was living in New York City. And the lyrics just popped in my head. I don't know, I can't explain how or whatever, but I'll be riding the subway and then that chorus, those were the lyrics that came to me.
Cool.
I was like, sometimes that's the way it is. Sometimes I design the lyrics, around the song, and that's how it works. It was kind of cool. That's the way that those particular lyrics came in. It's like I didn't even write them; they just kind of popped in my head.
Yeah, yeah, that creative flow where it's almost like that's kind of like how I feel like about the Spirit of Truth. It's like once you're open and sincere, real creative help comes in, or something like that. That
I would definitely chalk it up to that, because you're kind of letting yourself go and you're letting yourself be open to something that's just coming through you and not judging it and not being like, oh, what is this? Oh, I don't like it. Yeah. Just be like, okay, this is what it is. And then you just kind of let the message come through or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a message. It could be anything. It could be anything creative. Just let it come through and then get it out, and then you can refine it from there. And that's what that was. That those lyrics came through, and I was like, all right, how's this going to fit into the song? And luckily, through what I was hearing, the melody was already there too. So it just kind of came in. A lot of times the words would come in, or just the melody would come in and be like, all right, I have to craft words around the melody. And a lot of times nothing comes in. It's just like, all right, well, just got to work on it.
Yeah, all right. Well, that was a big cluster mess of stuff. So maybe you can walk us through some of the process of your creative process.
For sure. Usually it'll be an idea inspired by just something that's just popped in my head. Or sometimes I'll be trying to fall asleep and I'll get this riff or this melody coming into my head and be like, all right, I gotta wake up, can't forget this, and then just get it out. Whatever's going on through here, wake up, get onto my laptop, and then open up my program, my DAW, and just hash it out. Sometimes I'll get my guitar and not plug it in, just have it there so I can help myself figure out what the melody is in my head.
Okay.
And it's like that, or I'll write the music first and then the melody come, or I'll write. It kind of comes in different forms. Whatever it is, it's it's either spontaneous, like I'm falling asleep and then something will come in, or I'm jamming out and just or practicing and something will come in that way. I'll start going off on something else and be like, oh, that's an idea. Yeah. I just got to recognize the moment it becomes an idea. Because sometimes I'll just jam and be like, all right, this is cool, and just get into it and then not write anything down from that or take anything from that.
That's a good point, because what I take from that touches on something that Chuck Thurston was talking about when he was here, and that's potentials and actuals, or taking a potentiality into an actuality, right? You're actualizing that. So it's like you were just saying, there's a point when you're like, okay, I don't want this to go. I need to actualize this part.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
So you have a lot of potentialities popping up in your head, and so you choose which ones you're going to manifest.
I wish it was that cut and dry. Sometimes I forget, and then sometimes I'll have something pop in my head that's like really good, and I'll just there's so much stuff that's been forgotten, and I don't even know like what it was gonna turn out to be. Or,
what's funny is sometimes that's how it is when I'm going through the Urantia book. Sometimes it'll be like some real gems in there, but then since you've read so much in like one page, it can kind of fade away. But the beauty of it'll pop back up again eventually down the road somewhere.
For sure. It'll manifest in a different, like something will trigger it, right? So like if someone's posting something online or a conversation that you're having, like, oh yeah, I because I try to do that with the Urantia book when I'm writing lyrics. Like, all right, I'm going to read this part, and then what are my thoughts on this? And then that can inspire the lyrics as well. Reading something like the Lucifer Rebellion, for example, that's the most recent passage or the recent chapter I've read in the Urantia book, just touching up on that. And I was like, wow, this is very interesting. And there's a lot of feelings that it conjures. It's like, all right, I want to capture the moment of like us as a human being down here during the rebellion and how we're dealing with this and the ramifications of it and the fallout of it. It's like, what is it that we're dealing with? What is this? What that we're processing? We don't really know because it's kind of new. Yeah.
Well, the majority of people, as you would say, when you say we, I assume. Yeah. I kind of feel like it's so in our face and so grand and so bright and such the system that we're kind of used to that it's really hard to discern and step away from that system that is rebellious a little bit, right?
For sure. We're brought up into that system. It's natural for us to feel comfortable in the system that we're in now and thinking about like what it actually is and all the ramifications of it and what we're dealing with and how it's going to take a lot of time for it to be processed. And so the main thing that we can do as people is try to help other people process it by giving your insight on how you process it. And usually for me, it comes out through music,
right?
And it comes out through, and I'm sure others comes out through artwork and anything that you're creative with. And it's processing it, it's expression. And it's also, as far as I'm concerned with my own stuff, it's also hope for where you're going and gives you a direction and gives you some sort of, it's still, I mean, I can't assume that anyone knows how clear our future is going to be. I don't think anybody knows how clear our future is going to be, but you can at least put some hope in there and be like, all right, I'm being creative right now. And I also want to touch on how good it could be, how good things could be as far as your spiritual life and in harmonious balance with your physical life too.
Yeah.
So make the best of what you got here.
Yeah. I feel like, okay, since we are both kind of, you have that music side, I have that video side, and we've kind of found each other through the Urantia book teachings. And it's an interesting story because I don't think everybody knows. Actually, nobody knows except us. I mean, we're good friends and stuff, but I'm from Chicago, you're from New York, and we found each other because of Urantia stuff. And a topsy-turvy adventure brought us here to Boulder.
For real.
And here we are doing this, and we're in this podcast doing this thing, So I don't know if maybe you want to give your reflection on how we became friends and what brought us here, and we can go back and forth and riff on it if you want.
Yeah, we first met online on a forum.
Mm-hmm.
And we were, I feel like we were kind of seeing what people were posting, and I guess they were like channeling messages and posting them, and people were giving their reactions to stuff. And I was kind of like on the sidelines just observing for a while, and then I started posting a little bit and like, hey, what do you think about this? Or, I even introduced one of the songs I was working on. It didn't make the last album, but I introduced it and got some feedback on it. And then you started posting some more, and I think we got to a point where like on the same thread and like, hey, I'm gonna be in New York. I see that you live in New York. I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah. Because my mom lived in Brooklyn. When was this? It was like 2015.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Summer 2015, fall 2015, something like that. Yeah. My mom lives in Brooklyn. In Dumbo. And then you were in Astoria.
Yeah.
And then I got to visit. And that's when I was like really on this mission of, okay, yeah, we can go on these online forums and people are bringing in new information. They're teaching missions and channeling missions and all sorts of things and stuff. And there's something there, like there's food there for the babes that are like, maybe can't take on the Urantia book right away. So there's something that's kind of intriguing, but yet there's an opportunity for misguidance and misleading and things like that. Obviously.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Right. But nonetheless, the more active, the more dynamic, the more there's going to be youth engaged probably. Right. And so that's why we were both there.
Yes.
And just seeing what's going on. So during that time, I was like, okay, I'm not going to just take people's word for it online who are maybe self-aggrandizing themselves. I'm going to go out and meet these people. Yeah. Right. So I went out and met that person who was leading that forum or whatever. And that's why our paths crossed.
Yes. Yeah. You came back to New York and visited me in Astoria. And you stayed with me that time. You brought your cat and you stayed for a couple days.
Yeah.
And you talked about that experience. I was like, this is crazy. Like it was one of the craziest experiences.
That was straight out of a Seinfeld episode. I mean, we were laughing really hard about it.
But like, what a great experience for you to go through that craziness, that roller coaster of just being there for a few days and seeing what this person is doing. And even seeing like the deceit behind it, and it might not be intentional or not, whatever.
I saw more of problems,
right,
psychologically.
Yes,
you know what I mean. And then with the information that we have in the Urantia book, it's if you're not stable with what you're working with, or something can happen to you, man, you can really go off the deep end, dude.
Well, and I'm glad you bring that up because that is kind of you and I learned. We kind of have that street smarts coming from a big city and learning. Right. Are we getting hustled? Are we, something getting? Someone pulling the wool over our eyes? I still get hustled
sometimes though because I'm so trusting.
But like in this community, you kind of have to be trusting, but out in the world, you can't trust everybody because someone's playing their advantage, especially in a city. It's like, what angle are they playing? So bringing that level of discernment into the Urantia community, because you're gonna meet the figures that are deceiving you, or that will lead you on with kindness and loving, and then all of a sudden their behavior changes. They can still say the same thing, but if you're observing behavior before what people are saying, then you're gonna have a lot more insight to what's gonna be happening. Right. And if it's been done to you, which being from a big city, New York and Chicago, it has been done to you. So you're gonna be like, whoa, wait a minute. I know what's going on here. You can say all the BS you wanna say, but if I see your behavior and that's the way it's going on, and I see it's going to be like a little bit of trickery and a little bit of deceit going on, then
if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that there's also this optimism that's in spiritual communities all around that, they want to believe, they want to know that there's something new coming or that there's something special or that they're more special than they were led to believe or whatever. And the truth is, yes. The answer is yes. You are more special than you were led to believe. There is special things coming and there are special things here now. But it's almost like we need that authority to give us permission to rejoice and sing hallelujah that the kingdom is here or something like that,
Well, maybe that's the need for the parental figures that are coming out. It's like, I need approval from these parental figures. That's kind of bred into us.
Well, I will say, like, reflecting on my experience with that online forum, I went through a phase of wanting to like display my value and prove how worthy I was for whatever was important, to a point where learning that there's nothing to like prove anymore. Like now that I'm kind of independent with spiritual realities, I'm not trying to put on a uniform that says, okay, I'm safe now because I'm part of a uniform or anything like that. I'm just living my personal religion and letting that go wherever it goes. But my concern is that like this notion of us as youth, we want to be a part of something and prove our value and prove our worth and prove that we can contribute, right?
For sure.
And so the biggest lesson that I got out of that one, and maybe you can relate to that, is that you can contribute as long as you go within and find out what your God-given abilities and then your acquired skills and talents are, and then kind of pray on that and consecrate with divinity, saying, how can I practically serve my fellow mankind here with that?
Absolutely. I'm lucky enough to know what my God-given talent was. I found out early that this is the route I'm taking. Now, incorporating the Urantia book and the spiritual part of it was later. But I knew that the path I was going on is going to be music. I knew that was like, that's what I'm doing. It just vibrated with me at a young age. And I was like, well, this is it. And I was playing hockey at the time. So to touch up on what you're saying with people need being part of something, team sports is a great example of that.
Yeah.
And you're contributing to the whole. But I'm digressing. But getting that talent early and knowing and acting on that, be like, all right, now I got to set a course. I was young and I was like, I'm going to go to college for this. I'm going to learn as much as I can because this is what I'm going to do. And just keep doing that. Like with what I'm doing in my life, that's not paying the bills. So I have to work around that to try to figure out how to sustain myself while doing that and not taking away from the priority of creating and the priority of music, which I love so much. And that's what I do. Yeah. So it's in going within, I think that's a huge exercise and just being at peace with yourself and trying new things and exploring yourself and be like, what are the things that I'm good at and I like? Because you could be good at things that you don't like. Yeah. Out of survival.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's one of the things is like, just because you're good at something doesn't mean that should be your lifelong goal. Like, maybe you're really good at making spreadsheets. That doesn't mean that that's what you want to do
Sounds
forever.
like AI can do that soon, so you don't have to do that.
Yeah, that's true too. And that's something that's coming up. It's like harnessing and cultivating that talent or ability within is sometimes counterintuitive. And it goes back to maybe what another guest came on here, Chris Halverson, is talking about natural versus unnatural. Yes. And that it's almost unnatural or counterintuitive to really foster talents that don't show manifestations until years down the road or something like that. You know what I mean? Like that investment of some people just want the quick fix right away, that shortcut, right? But you look at that squirrel who's been stashing away nuts for a while and it pays off down the road. So have you found in your development maybe times of temptation of shortcuts or trying to cut what that real investment of character is for you?
That temptation is always there.
Okay.
So if I really wanted to if I wanted to focus my efforts and make money doing what I'm doing, then I have to sacrifice my integrity and what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Because it's around 2008 is when I found the Urantia Book. And that really solidified why I'm doing it. Because I was just writing and it was all coming from the heart, but it wasn't anything directed. And I knew what I was writing was it was special to me at least. I don't know about other people, but I hope so, But I'm not really concerned with that. I just got to keep doing what I'm doing. But finding the Oriental Book and finding the messages within that is really what helped me. All right, I have to do this now. This is the direction I'm going. So
there was kind of like a validation process.
For sure. After reading the book, I was like, all right, it's kind of a relief. I was like, now I know how to incorporate this into what I'm doing. If I wanted to, I could just be like, I'm just going to make beats for rap artists, whatever.
Yeah. I wanted to. Well, not that rap is like a bad thing.
Right, I'm not knocking it.
Commercial rap might be just the same as commercial rock and commercial everything. It's not exactly.
There's a lot of garbage to pick through.
Yeah. But the average person isn't going to know that because they're not exactly trained in all of that.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say garbage. It's all recycled, right? So it's all refined and polished.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because when we had another guest on here who was talking about the difference between art and how most art is just a rearrangement of things, right? And so what you're talking about is just kind of rearranging this beat or this musical structure or whatever, versus when you're riding on the train and all of a sudden you get inundated and flooded with some notion that's maybe hasn't been here before and you got to write it down.
Right, yeah. I feel a lot of artists are like that. There's also an overwhelmingly amount of artists that are not like that. That are just in it for the wrong reasons. They're in it for the drug, sex, and rock and roll part of it, right? I want to do this. I want to aggrandize my ego. I want to go that route. Which, if you make the right music, you can easily get all that. Is that the right music, right? If you're making what's popular and what's being put into mainstream now. And I'm not trying to knock it, and I'm not trying to knock people that are listening to whatever, but this is just my opinion.
Right.
Is whatever's putting into mainstream now, it is recycled. They literally have formulas for the season. Like, it's springtime. We're going to have these 3 chords put together, and this is going to be the chord progression for what the mainstream artists are using.
And then it all goes on one channel that just distributes everywhere, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, major broadcasting.
Like Clear Channel or something.
Yeah, it used to be like the major radio stations, and then satellite took over, and satellite started doing that. Satellite's still around, but they still follow a formula where it's like you can't really break into that unless you're in that.
And I agree, because I used to have satellite radio on the car. I don't have it anymore. It was kind of waste, but I felt like it just pigeonholed me into this typecast where I could not get outside of these genres of rehashed music over and over and over. And so I wonder, like, it like homogenizes us in some sort, that we can't kind of break free of this mold of new creativity inundation that can come through, I think.
Well, yeah, and these are formulas that are proven to make money. And so they're going to keep that in place until it doesn't work, and then to reinvent kind of what they're doing. With the advent of streaming music, it is kind of pushing satellite out a little bit. So, but people still drive cars and stuff like that, so they're still going to use that. But like for sure, it's like, hey, you seem edgy. You're gonna like this turbo station,
right? Even though it's just from like 10 years ago. Yeah, it's Nickelback. Yeah.
Not that, a lot of people like Nickelback, but I'm just saying what it is. It's just, it's commercial, it's homogenized, it's they push it for a reason. It's like, oh, I'm edgy because I'm being fed this channel.
Right. Well, I got a little edgy question for you, and I know that there's stuff that goes on online, and maybe people aren't very clear about that. But you being a sound engineer, maybe you could help us out. Is the difference between the hertz of recording on music of 440, right? Or 448? What's the difference of how it's recorded?
Oh, the quality, the depth, the bit depth, and So
it's changed over time.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's something called the loudness wars, where if you listen to music from like the 60s and 70s, it's mastered at a quieter volume than it is today. Now it's being pushed. It's always up to 0 dB, but the perceived loudness has always been gradually getting louder and louder and louder. Okay. Listen to something from 10 years ago, and it's going to be perceived as being quieter, even though some parts are going to be at 0 dB.
Why is that?
Competition. Commercial competition, where it's like, if how like commercials are louder than the
I know how to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So they like push the commercials louder. Oh, pay attention to this.
Right.
So if you're being bombarded with that, you're like kind of being forced. You're like, all right, I have to pay attention to this. This is the loudest thing that's going on.
Now, isn't there like a kilohertz difference too, though? Like a hertz difference between like 440 and 328 or something?
Well, that's quality. That's quality of the music.
Okay.
That's being perceived as what you hear, and it's going to be filling in. If it's at a lower quality, there's like what's called dithering, which kind of fills in the gaps of the perceived volume with white noise. And it's and you can't really tell, but it does kind of fill in that quality. So where the bits are missing, and then the higher the quality you get, the less it dithers and the less you need.
Now,
dithering.
Is there a frequency that's more healthy for humans to listen to?
Oh, you're talking about sound now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's 432 is standard now.
Okay.
And no, 440.
440. That's what
I'm alluding to 432.
Oh, yeah. Right. Okay.
432 is apparently what resonates more naturally with us and vibrates more in symmetry and harmony with us, and specifically within the water in our bodies.
Okay.
440 is more dissonant, but that's now standard. And the standard used to be 432. If you were to put, like say, a speaker underneath like a thing of sand or some water, if you put the 432 hertz through the speaker up through the sand or the water, whatever medium you choose, it makes this like snowflake pattern where it's like beautiful and it's full of symmetry.
Yeah.
And if you put 440, it all of a sudden distorts and it looks ugly, and it's just like,
oh, it's not as uniform.
Yeah, exactly. So me personally, when I think of that, it's like, well, what's going on inside of our bodies when we're listening to music that's tuned to 440?
Right.
Is it just causing, because we are made of a lot of water. We got a ton of water in our bodies. So is that like, is it causing a lot of disharmony in our body? Is it causing a lot of these like lower emotions that people mostly feel out in
I know
public,
that everyone's suffering with tons of anxiety and tons of stress, so I wonder, I'm sure it's a culmination of everything, but a lot of it can't help. I know there's times when if I'm overstressed, I got to turn off everything. I don't want to hear anything.
Well, you're bombarded. Yeah, you're bombarded with discordant frequencies where it's just coming in and you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
So people might not even know to even think of even doing that as kind of a therapeutic process.
Which is, what would
either
they do?
Figure out how to tune all your music you listen to down to 432, or just kind of take a break from it. And there are stuff like classical music.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
There's a lot of that the older stuff is 432.
Okay.
As far as tuning to standard. So you listen to 432, and if your body's like chiming and just like resonating with things that like make water look like snowflakes, I think that's got to be a pretty good thing, right?
Yeah.
If it's like probably more releases more dopamine, probably makes you happier.
Yeah.
As far as like the 440, it's like coming in and just like kind of disrupting what's going on in your body, and especially if the medium inside of your body's water and electricity, probably creates some disharmony within that too.
That's a good point. I always think about how the Urantia Book talks about how we're so electrochemically pulled, we're just such victims to it sometimes, and that it is such an unnatural process to go beyond it. But I think that since we are creators and we have a bit of the creator inside all of us, that we have enough here to find healthy alternatives to that which is bombarding us with pain and other things like that,
I find that one of the healthy alternatives for me personally is just going up into the mountains and just going and just like taking a hike, just breathing in the fresh air and just looking at the beauty of what God has created for us. It's like there's a lot of beauty and symmetry and colors out there, and sounds and silence that's out there. It's just like, it's very therapeutic. I think a lot of people can benefit from that.
Amen, man.
Amen.
So let's change direction here. You being Mr. Bartender, having to pay the bills.
Yeah.
I see that you brought a present for us.
I did. I brought a small cider.
Oh, nice.
From England. And this is the blush, kind of like a take on a rosé cider. It's got a little blackberry in there. This is one of the best ciders I've ever had. Just everything in their line so far is just so well balanced. So,
I know this is like we're not like pitching like we have a sponsor or something.
We are not being paid by them or anything. I just drinking cider and talking it's a
yeah. Hey man, sharing, making merry with friends.
Exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Pour myself some.
I'm actually trying to make cider myself. I think that it's a really cool craft. It's an art. I've always been into juicing. Anyone who's been my Facebook friend has known that I've been doing juices for like the last decade. And I feel like cider is my next little hobby. This fermentation process and having unique blends and stuff is just unique. I like working with the plants and everything.
It's creative.
Yeah.
You're creating stuff.
Yeah. Plus, I got a nice cranberry one getting ready for this holiday season, so it'll be nice for everyone.
Nice. Yeah. Like Christmas party? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about something that, we're going to talk about holidays, and I'm blessed that I get to spend my holidays with family who are Urantia Book people. Mm-hmm. And I've been very privileged to be brought into the Urantia community very graciously. Perhaps maybe I'm very privileged because I was born into this community or whatever, but I know that you and I got the opportunity pretty much exactly last year to go to a Urantia Book fellowship gathering in Oregon. And that was your first gathering with that community, right?
Yes, yeah.
And I just kind of want to get your take on it, like in a just completely objective manner. What is it like to be kind of young? You're coming from New York City, you've been through a lot of stuff. And then you come into the spiritual gathering after reading the Urantia Book that's been inspiring you. Most people don't know what to expect.
It was
when
completely
they go out.
Opposite.
Yeah.
Complete opposite.
Go for it.
It was good. It was disarming in a good way. Where I'm going up there. I'm like, what is? It's like kind of. At first, I was like, wow, this is just like, kind of too positive. What's going on here?
Not enough edge.
Not enough edge, right?
Okay.
And but it ended up being like a great experience and connecting with a lot of good people. And you and I were one of the younger ones in there. There's a couple other younger people, but for the majority, it was an older crowd. And it was good to see where they're coming from and what their perspective is. And they have a lot more to share. And they've been through a lot more.
Yeah, they've been studying for a while too.
Yeah, and they have been studying for a while. So they got their licks down.
Did you feel intimidated by the intellectual properties of being around somebody who studied a lot? Good.
I felt more inspired by that.
Okay.
By like a lot of the presentations were just so well put together, and I was like, "This is great!" Like, I took more inspiration from that. I like intellectually, I like to challenge myself, so I never really feel intimidated when there's someone that's of quote unquote like intellectual superiority. It's like, I'm going to learn from this person.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
that's
good.
the opportunity that I look
Yeah,
at.
that's good. I appreciate that, of just kind of emptying your cup and just soaking it in.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
like, well, you're kind of moving your ego aside. Be like, no, I know a lot already.
Yeah,
Like,
well, I feel like you and I both kind of got over this hump where we realized, like, if we really want to be as good as we think we can be, we're going to have to learn from a lot of different sources.
for sure.
And it's not a matter of learn until I'm better, then I can squash them with my ego. It's just, I need to learn from all different sources if I know that I can maximize my potential.
Yeah, and also we live with these people, so trying to find harmony and a balance to be able to live with these people. We're gonna be living with people that are intellectually lower and intellectually superior, and I don't mean that in a condescending way at all.
Right.
It's just that's the reality of what it is. And I notice in the world that there is a lot of like stuck upness and generationally.
Well, what do you mean, like pretentiousness, or like what do you mean?
Like I don't want to throw any one generation under the bus, but there's a lot of from bartending.
Right.
What I notice is like, hey, I'm better than this. I'm better than that person. I'm better. It's like, no, you're not. No, you're not. It's like, we're all in the same arena. We're all we're all figuring it out.
Yeah, I feel that.
It's one big chemistry set, at
Yeah.
this point.
That's that ideological struggle that I feel us as humans, we're still going through. This, just that same ideology, man. It's just that like even Jesus was kind of warning us against. It's just like, there isn't an intellectual property that separates us, really. It's like we are brethren, and under
Right.
God, we are loved equally. And whenever I see people getting too caught up in that material game of holding one over another, or I'm better than you, or whatever, it's a blatant sign of saying that they're too invested in the material, right?
Agreed. Yeah.
And so I feel like, like without touching on any cultures or anything, it's really this chosen person ideology of saying, I'm better than you. And that's why I feel like the unnatural process is then, in an intelligent way, to say, I love you equally, or God loves you equally. I see the thought adjuster. I see God in you. Namaste, or whatever.
Yeah.
And this notion where then there's this creative space that opens up, that everyone's like got a seat at the table and is willing to contribute, and their contribution is valid.
Yeah. You can feel the energy change when that happens. And a lot of the reason why that doesn't happen, at least from what I've experienced and noticed, is like kind of a chosen person kind of a thing, where it's like, no, you are not part of the elite club. You are not part of this club. Therefore, you cannot experience what I'm experiencing right now, And most likely, they don't know, the elite people don't know what that is, what they're experiencing at that moment. They're experiencing like high levels of materialism. I've made it. I'm successful. I got this car. I got this house, and I got this to prove it, right? This is my badges that I'm wearing. It's like, it's all irrelevant. You're going to die just like the rest of us, and all that gets wiped. Like, what do you, like, why? Why, like, well, you don't need to accumulate all these things.
Yeah.
Although you can acquire wealth, and if you spend it in the right ways, and you do it to take care of your family and your lineage, that's way more honorable.
Yeah.
Than just be like, I'm getting this car, excuse me, I'm getting this car, I'm getting this house, just to show my status, kind of thing. It's just like, well, geez, that makes other people who will never be able to afford their lifetime feel like garbage. It's like, you're just flashing that. It's just like, oh, I'll never be.
Well, what do you feel like when when you hear the teachings of Jesus saying, the last shall be first and the first shall be last?
Well, yeah, I mean, it goes along with the greatest of you shall be your servant kind of thing. It's like,
the servant of all.
Yeah, the servant of all. So like, you're like, we're all going to get down and dirty. We're all going to get into it. It's like, but that's the down and dirty is serving the distrodden, serving the people of lesser status, and realizing that they are your brother or your sister. They're a child of God, just like you are, and I am. Like, we're the same.
Yeah.
So they just happen to be in different circumstances, and good on the people who have material gain and are wealthy enough to even recognize that. Yeah,
and can use it to help.
Yes, they have more resources to do so. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's the beauty of the spirit of truth. It's just working in all of us, and I think all we can do is kind of set the table and provide the most opportune environments and scenarios for spiritual development. Like,
Yes.
And then it's like what you were talking about, is just being open and being honest and sincere. Sincerity is like so huge in this whole game. And I feel like when I have my experiences with the Spirit of Truth, not just once a week on the show, but like, it's usually when I'm in very troubled situations.
Yeah.
And I'm hurting.
Yeah.
I'm like spiritually hurting,
Yeah.
And it takes that moment of me to invite Jesus into my mind and to be so honest with myself about what I'm afraid of. And it might be really superficial and I'm embarrassed about that.
Yeah.
But as long as I can admit it, then there's this space that opens up where there is help and there is real, sincere, loving guidance that fulfills what I need to do better, to do good, to reflect that love, So I wonder, being a musician, there has to be like some supreme levels of sincerity that you take on.
You have to be honest with yourself. Like you have to realize what your shortcomings are, and you have to accept them and acknowledge them to yourself. You don't have to acknowledge it to anybody else, but you have to be real clear with yourself. Be like, all right, this is where I'm most vulnerable. This is where I feel the worst about myself. Like
right,
I'm a self-conscious person,
right?
Like for sure, and that just is what it is. I don't know if it's like being an artist or whatever it is. I don't know what to chalk it up to.
Okay,
but that's how I am. I'm very self-conscious at times, and at times I'm not. It just depends on what it is. But like you have to be honest with yourself and be like, all right, these are my shortcomings. These are my limitations. These are the limitations I want to push and kind of feel vulnerable and exposing myself, but I will be better for it. Like that's a lot of things that people, they put up the wall and they're just like, I don't want to deal with that. That's not a part of me I'm willing to look at.
Well, I think that this stems back to what we were talking about earlier, is that we're in this society that's really built around being an expert on something.
Yeah.
And so then when we come into this realization that we're not an expert on something, and we can't get recognized for it, then we feel terrible because we've kind of like put all our chips into this material basket of recognition. Mm-hmm. And if we look at like Jesus is what he was talking about, it's like shift your focus. Your focus is so much on this material stuff. I was like this whole week I was thinking about maybe because I cut my hands up in like every direction this week.
All of them.
Like every finger
you have
I
two
cut.
fingers left in
like
there.
washing dishes and everything. But like I was like washing dishes and I cut my hand bad. But I was thinking about right then how a little joke is like, how would Jesus wash his dishes? And for those of you who don't know, I would say first he would fill the inside until it overflowed out and then cleanse the outside, right? And then that's that notion of filling the inside, what matters most, focusing on what matters most. It's just like you were talking about earlier, like focusing on the kingdom, the greater and the lesser shall be taken care of.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great point. That's one thing that most people can't grasp. That's a concept that's like, what do you mean it's inside? What do you mean the kingdom? When most people think kingdom, they're like, where's my king?
Fortress and stuff.
Smite my enemies and
right.
that kind of thing. It's like, yeah, exactly, a fortress. It's like, I'm protected by all the things that are going to hurt me.
Yeah.
That is on your inside. All the things that are going to hurt you on an existential level are from inside of yourself.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to take that journey and be like, all right, I got to confront all these things, all these demons that are like, whatever's bothering you, it doesn't matter what it is, but it's still on you. You can project that onto other people as much as you want, and it's not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah.
It's always going to get you to where you are going to be. You can run away. You can, how people usually
Isn't
do
it interesting
right?
though, how like some people can find the Urantia Book and then all of a sudden pretend like they've already gotten through all that?
Got it. Done. That's it. Guys, I'm already in the kingdom.
And I'm done.
That's another chosen person syndrome too, though. It's like, yeah, I'm there. I already got there. All right, how come you didn't leave like Enoch did? What's going on?
Yeah. I would say it's almost like a false chosen person, because in actuality, it's vestigial traits. It's these vicissitudes of being an animal, right? So we still have all these vestiges of being an animal, right? So we have all these vestiges left of like equivocation and problem avoidance and ease seeking and basically dishonesty, right? And then we slip into that, and then we kind of slip into our animal self, and it feels natural. Right. That's the whole counterintuitive thing about all of this. It's that, like, when you go into divine conspiracy or when you're in cooperation with divinity, it's not an animal thing that much anymore. So that's counterintuitive, to be something that's 90% animal, to be like, okay, I'm gonna like transcend beyond this that feels natural and familiar to me.
For sure. It makes you feel vulnerable. When you're trying to branch out from the animalistic behaviors that we all display, you're putting yourself out there to the other animals, right? You're putting yourself out there to the other people in the tribe. Yeah. What are you doing? You're breaking too far away from the tribe. And it's that not only is there social pressure for you not to, there's also that internal pressure for you not to, because you feel you're going on alone. You're venturing on by yourself, and you feel vulnerable and scared.
Yeah.
But that's not the case, because what we don't see is the majority of the cosmos is on your side, as opposed to the tribe that's holding you back.
Right.
Like that's all what you see, because that's on a material level, and on a non-material level, whoa, is it more overwhelming that if for them to be pushing for you to go on your own?
Yeah, you know? It's tough too, because it's this notion of like going on your own, but you're never on your own either. Like, there's always divinity on helping you out.
Yeah, exactly,
you know?
exactly.
You're never alone.
Otherwise, it'd be kind of futile for you even to adventure out and do all this stuff. Be like, oh, I just isolated myself. Oops.
So that's why I would say that faith begins at the end of your comfort zone, essentially.
I would agree with that for sure.
Yeah, I think so few people are willing to step out into something they don't know what the heck's going to happen. You know,
that's why they don't have it.
Yeah,
it's like no, faith requires me to go to that precipice,
but not in an ignorant manner, not in like a foolish way. You know, like I'm just gonna. Like, I'm from Chicago. I know there's parts of the neighborhood I don't go to. You know what I mean? Like,
that's where discernment comes back in. Yeah. You're not a lemming being like, faith going off the cliff.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm for sure not going to die.
Yeah, right. That's where you have to be intelligent, too. Discerning.
That's where you got to take your lashings. That's where it's like you got to get burned a couple times and be like, all right, I know not to do that because I know this when it's going to happen. And going back to the coming from a city, like most of my friends in New York are very street smart, because they've been taken advantage of. They got their lashings, you know? And it's not a bad thing. Like, if you come out of that alive and you come out of that, your personality intact, and you're not jaded from that, God bless you.
Amen. You know, I feel like this whole life on this planet's like that.
Yeah, right? We're getting our stripes.
Yeah, I mean,
if from a rebellion planet.
Yeah. You know, you come off of this sphere, 606, it's no joke. You know,
from where?
Yeah. You know, I wonder what it's like when you wake up in the mansion worlds, hopefully on the third day, and you know, I know they isolate us. We get our own little wing, keep those little monkeys over there, and then but that interaction that goes on, you know, I think it's like it's so valuable, the experience that we're having here, even though it's embarrassing right now in the grander picture, you know, just because of all the material things we got to go through, but it's so valuable up there, and people are going to want to pick our brain, man.
And that is such a good thing to think about too, because like here, people aren't so eager to pick our brains, like, what's your experience? You know,
right?
They're more like judging you.
Right.
Oh, you come from there. Oh, you did that. Well, ugh.
Jesus got judged like that. He came from Nazareth. Me. You're out. You get shunned.
You're shunned, and you're out of here. Did not get accepted. And he was the chosen one amongst a lot of in many people's eyes. But
it was tough for them. He couldn't
break in through the chosen people. You know.
Well, the notion also, and I think that we're still struggling with this right now, is this idea of the messianic leader, the Messiah, the chosen one.
Yeah.
Is not a member of the X-Men. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like this notion that he's going to come down and smite everyone, be a political powerhouse and an army that smashes everyone in such a physical might makes right manner.
Right.
And that's why I have issue with the Old Testament, because it always reflects this Messiah as just a bully king. You know?
It's hypocritical as heck. It's one of the most hypocritical things. It's like, all right, these are my enemies. God needs to smite them because they're wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, no.
Revenge for me.
Yeah, well, they're your brothers and your sisters, and they're just as much as a child of God as you are. Why would he wipe out half of his children?
Well, that goes on also. I mean, that plays on the other thing that I think a lot of people have a hard time dealing with within the Catholic Church. Those who aren't part of the Catholic Church is this notion that Jesus died and shed his blood for me so that I can be saved because of what I did. Because of my sin. And I think it's really, really important that people really look at, if you have kids, would you sacrifice one of your children because one of your other children messed up?
No. That's messed up.
That's vicious.
Yeah.
And so like, we're really coming to the quality of thinking now, or at least trying to understand the loving personality of God.
Yeah.
And it's hard because, Jesus came here and he talked about God as a loving father. But here we are in this rebellion planet where there aren't a lot of loving fathers. I mean, there are a lot out there, and God bless you. But we have a difficult situation. Right. We have a difficult situation here. A lot of single parents, a lot of poverty and stuff like that.
Especially when that's glamorized.
Yeah.
Being a single parent's glamorized. Oh, you go.
Yeah. It could be. Yeah, definitely. And so, bringing back this positive parental presence in divinity, you know what I mean? Like, that's a challenge now, just to say that God is your loving parent, because maybe somebody doesn't have loving parents.
Yeah, if you don't have an example of that, you're like, what do you mean? What is that?
But I wouldn't take away from the intelligence of Jesus's plan. It's not like I'm like, yeah, all right, let's call an audible. Jesus's plan was nonsense, so he's not smart enough. We'll use a different one.
Where there's a different ruler of our universe now? What do you mean?
Yeah. So, but I'm just trying to like really pray and gain insight into how I personally can reflect the loving personality of God while not getting caught up in the factual existence of God. You know what I mean? Like, it turns into this battle almost.
Then it just becomes an argument.
Right.
Yeah. That's a good question. That's I guess it's on a person-to-person basis, and it's all whoever you interact with. I have a lot of friends out in New York that are all atheists, but they're all different on their own personal. We have our own relationship on a personal level, and a lot of them you just can't. You introduce the concept of God, they're like, no, and they shut down and they don't want to talk.
Yeah, totally.
And it's like, but other ones are willing to be like, all right, if you can talk about that in a roundabout matter and talk about the qualities of God and the things that are already there in their life that are hinting towards God, and then try to bring them out. It's like a way slower process, but I think it's a way more productive.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think just knowing, even if you just go first and you say, I know God loves me. I feel his love in my heart or whatever, and it allows me to be loving with others. I think just how many people our age don't know that God truly loves us?
A lot of people.
Yeah. And that the mercy is like so vast. So
that's a good concept to fathom. What is mercy? Like, a lot of people will be like, does that mean I could do whatever I want and do wrong whenever I want, and then knowing I'll have mercy in the end and without correcting behavior? Or as mercy is like, I'm trying, but I'm messing up all the time. You'll have mercy.
Well,
there's a lot of different
I feel
perspectives on
sincerity is what really is the line on that, right?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
You can be ignorant and have a lot of error and evil, but if you were sincere, then Spirit will work with you and you'll start to develop in your curriculum.
Word.
But if you're mindful of what your sinful activities are, like, better.
Right.
You've been told by an credible source, and you still go on and choose the lesser characteristics, then that's something, man, that sucks. And we all deal with that here.
That's iniquity.
Well, don't tell me. I mean, I can't tell you I haven't sinned before, because I have,
Yeah.
And all of us have here on this planet. Except Jesus.
Sin. Right.
Except Jesus. So that's kind of like, that's why that's the bar for me. And thank God
Even when he hid his harp from the tax collector, it wasn't.
Well, he ended up selling it so that his sister could go to school anyway. So
that's honorable.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the tax collector is coming around taking your stuff.
Well, it's still going on.
It is still going on. I got to hide my harps.
I'm still waiting for my returns, okay? So, all right. Well, let's talk a little bit about how challenging it is to, I would say, navigate the waters of a rebellious planet when you're, let's say, in our age range, because that's what we can comment on the most. How deceptive rebellion can slip into one's lives, you know? And deceptively, it's just like a subtle slip into your life.
It's deceiving through comfort.
Okay.
It's coming in through all the creature comforts, where it's just like the frog in the steadily boiling water.
Yeah, heat it up slowly.
Exactly. You have no idea until it's too late, and you're asleep at that point.
But there is always salvation.
There is, absolutely. There's going to come to a point where you're like, wait a minute. You're going to have a perspective where you step back and outside of yourself and be like, what is really going on here? A lot of the deception comes through our media. Our media is the biggest culprit of that. Movies, music, TV, even interactions with other people. If they're in that system, they're going to regurgitate those talking points. I don't want to name names or name any sources like that. I don't want to throw people under the bus, but it is what I observed, at least. It's like you could tell when someone's watching too much of one thing and they regurgitate that back. You're like, all right, you gotta get out. You gotta break out of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm a journalist student. I majored in broadcast journalism. Like, you learn where these news sources are coming from, and it's like two sources. It's like only two, and everyone just rips and reads the script.
Yeah.
Right. And so then, like you were saying, when then you do share space with someone who's just reading the same script, only they were never even issued the script. They're just reading because they think that that's the way it is. That's disheartening for me. That's a challenge, but I think that we have creative ways to do it now. I mean, we've got this podcast now. Urantia Book Network is growing, thanks to you and others. And I feel like now's the time. We're so lucky. We're so blessed. It's like I feel spoiled. I always talk about being privileged. I feel like maybe I don't have to get martyred out to share the truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, let's hope not.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm like, hallelujah, dude, like 24/7, mostly, unless I'm like really sick.
And this is kind of the what times we're in. It's all media. Any kind of message you want to spread is going to be through social media. It's going to be through audio, video, whatever it is you have to.
Well, all right. Well, then let me cut you off. So how do you feel about maybe past generations of Urantia Book representation? And like, it's a challenge now because I think maybe they didn't like really jump on the media bandwagon right away, or when they could have.
I can't blame them because they don't know. It's like new. It's like probably VR for us. What's coming with VR? It's scary. Like what's going to happen? So it's probably scary to them too. Like I don't know what this is. But in the Urantia Book, just like religion has to be dynamic and it has to change with the times, so as does the message. And it has to. And like the new technology is going to come. You can't stop that.
Yeah.
And as far as
the means of the message, I mean, the message is the same. God loves you.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Love your brothers and sisters.
You just got to figure out a new format to deliver it to people.
New platform.
Because they're consuming they're consuming different formats.
Right.
Look at what music has been consumed by from the 20s all the way up until now. It was like live.
Right.
The recordings from the 20s are terrible, but the live experience was what it was. All the way up through 50s, 60s, 70s, where the recording process got more in depth, and then it started coming out, and they got records, and it came CDs or 8-track, and then CDs,
right,
and then
digital. Yeah,
it's like that's always changing, and now it's going to a new realm where it's like streaming and video, and you get on your phone. Pretty soon it's going to be chipped, so you get on your phone, and that's the format, but we have to adapt to the format for sure. We can't really be afraid of what that is, even if the next format's VR and beyond, whatever that's going to be. I can't say.
Is there still a need for like that traditional medium, like a book, like Egyptian hieroglyphs, like that
Braille?
That value of like that elemental.
There's something tactile.
Source,
that's why I mentioned Braille.
mean?
It's very. I still read books. I think turning a page and that feel of turning a page, and I feel I make more progress with it, and I'm like holding something tangible. So I'm turning the page like, all right, did that.
It's accomplishment.
Check that off.
And you know what, man? Let's get back to this of happiness, because That's something I've been really meditating on lately, is like the difference between joy and happiness, and like when I feel happy, and it's usually when I've accomplished something that has shown potential inside, and then you actualize it on the material level. And that brings this like sustainable happiness. And so I'm wondering, is that we have this notion of this like get rich quick, like shortcut, and that it might be like momentary fleeting joy, but not quite real sustainable happiness. Do you have any insight into that?
As far as like the get rich quick, yeah, I mean, I'm guilty of trying to get rich quick. I would love to have all the material needs taken care of and then not even worry about it. Mm-hmm. Like that'd be great, but that's not the reality of it. Mm-hmm. So with me, as far as like deferred happiness or deferred gratification, that's coming into something where, like me doing this new album, it's the most rewarding experience I'm going through, and it's also the most frustrating thing, because I'm like, all right, my sounds are definitely more evolved, and they're progressing, and they're getting better. But the challenge behind getting it to from here to there is a lot of learning.
Yeah.
And a lot of letting, like a lot of putting your ego down, be like, oh no, I already knew that stuff before. No, it's like now it's now I look at it as it's another blank slate. And now I just I just build on the fundamentals of what I learned and what I know is natural for me to do sound engineering and music writing. But I'm gonna take that and now I'm going to another level. Take that and I don't even think about that. Now I have a clean slate and I'm willing to, what I've learned this past few months, just learning, forget all the stuff that's not working and relearn the stuff that's gonna build you up even more. And that's learning from great audio producers that I'm like doing, listening to and watching masterclass. Yeah. And I'm just, and working with, exactly.
I know you're working with a couple producers, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Bill.
Yeah. I've learned a lot from him just in whatever little we work together as I'm learning immensely. Mm-hmm. And from my inspirations and the music that I listen to and the producers of that music are willing to do videos on YouTube and masterclasses, and like that is a huge resource. The resources are out there if you want to be able to. I
agree. We're at this time where it's like we can all just teach each other. You know, it's like we're all sharing what we figured out, and it's this like DIY culture, do-it-yourself culture. Yeah, I'm like even just like making the cider stuff, you know, or like. Mm-hmm. I built a platform in the back of my car, like all that stuff you can do with YouTube and things like that. This podcast is on YouTube. Like we're in a great time, man. Yeah. We're in a great time. Hallelujah.
And it's like hinting at the need for, you don't really need to accumulate a lot of money to do these things, because these are the things that are people at the top of their game. But I'm getting there without spending money to be at the top of my game. I'm just trial and error and learning and being open and not letting my ego be like, I already know this stuff. I don't need to learn it. Like get that out of the way. You can learn. If you have YouTube, you can learn for free.
Nice. Well, let's talk about a little bit something I want to talk about, and that's this notion of forgiveness, because I think for everyone on our planet, it's a difficult situation as to how we see God forgiving us. You know, it's like in my experience and what I've learned, it's that, you know, God has already forgiven us. It's just whether we can open up our capacity to understand what that forgiveness is, you know, and the best way for us to understand what that forgiveness is to forgive others.
I agree. That's the only way we can understand. Like, we have to have an example of things, right? On this level, it's like, all right, so we have endless forgiveness. Okay, what is that? So maybe that takes, as a child or like growing up for me personally, doing something stupid or something that hurts someone else, and then getting forgiveness from them, or getting forgiveness from your parents, or where it's like on that level where you have an example coming through. It's like, okay, it's okay. It's like holding grudges. I know a lot of people that still hold grudges. It's like, all right, it sounds like to me they haven't actively tried to forgive people or been given forgiveness.
Yeah, they don't know what it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you.
Well, they don't have that example, so it's like, well, I'm just gonna hold this grudge. I don't know what that is, and if I do forgive you, it's not gonna be genuine or anything like that. So to understand what I mean, I'm just assuming, I'm not saying this is authoritative or anything. To understand what God's forgiveness is you have to actively forgive others.
Yeah.
And maybe you have to actively transgress and be forgiven.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think this notion of like, I've already forgiven you. You know, it's
Right.
like, and then I think like as humans with our egos, we're a little bit like, I'll only forgive you if you're sorry. You know what I mean?
That's like,
and
play
then,
my game.
And then we think of God being that same way as this judge. Like, I'm only going to forgive you if you repent, or if you lash yourself, or if you really feel bad. But we don't realize that he's already forgiven us. And it doesn't mean that we have these get out of jail free cards by any means.
No.
Like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, you can hear the sirens outside. The window's open, okay, everyone?
Yeah.
Like, we're in Boulder. We're downtown Boulder.
Someone's not being forgiven right now.
Or they are being forgiven, nonetheless. But I
Hopefully
feel...
that medical bill will be forgiven.
Welcome to America. But so what I'm trying to like take on in my own life is this like forgiveness, like abandoning my own ego in why someone should be forgiven. It's like really remember that God's forgiven me for all the stuff that I haven't even apologized for.
Right.
And that, you know, there's some peace to it. Some peace to it.
He's not with a checklist being like, all right, do you meet the criteria for being forgiven? Yes. You said sorry. All right. You're going to change your course of action next time.
Right.
That's not, yeah.
Do you think that that's because we're so used to this material legal system of having a judge and everything like that?
For sure. A lot of that's embedded into us because of that. And that goes back, it predates America. It goes back way before, where it's like a council that's going to be like, all right, what do we do with this person? They have gone against our laws. Mm-hmm. And well, now how do we do it? It's not knowing the concept of rehabilitation and forgiveness and mercy.
Or maybe your laws are a little bit weird.
Most likely, especially if it's back in the day.
Yeah,
like a lot of those laws are based on ghost fears and stuff like that. So it's like...
Right.
Sorry, the alarm went off.
Well, it was good timing on the alarm. I always have that in my life. There are always these weird serendipity moments where I'll say something that Jesus said, and all of a sudden there'll be like lightning, or there'll be like thunder, some weird wind, and like, see, I told you.
Don't mess with it.
Well, you know, I appreciate having a youth perspective here, especially someone who's read the Urantia Book as much as you have, and kind of lived your life with the constant attempt of actualizing your potentials. And I think that's really important. And I think, you know, as I talk to more younger readers, or they've just been turned on the Urantia Book, you know, there's a challenge, because it's almost like, you know, we talked about this circle, you just talked about a circle, and that I fear that maybe like the generation of Urantia Book readers that came before me got caught in that circle. And so then when all these new people come in, it's not like they find the Urantia Book Fellowship or the Urantia Book Foundation or Urantia Association International, even for that matter. They're going online and they're finding these forums that some of it's legitimate, some of it's not.
Right.
But I think the real needs that are being addressed online is that people are asking questions and they're being addressed. They're being answered.
Yeah. It's an immediate resource that going to finding study. How do you, like, if you find them online, but finding them in a phone book, no one's going to do that. Like, or word of mouth. Anymore. Yeah. That's not happening. The internet is an immediate resource that you have. So naturally, that's what I did after I read the book and read it a couple times. I'm like, all right, I want to start like branching out. And then I'm hearing people. I'm just like, oh, there's people in New York City that read the book. Like, I would have never thought. I thought this was just a book that was like no one knows about. Right. It's like, because it was so out there and it was just so like no one's gonna even understand. I tried to like share it with my my sister and some other members of my family and some friends that were in New York, and they just were like, nah, it's not. Nah, I don't. It's too much. It's too overwhelming. Like what you're talking about, no.
Well, you've always been a searcher for truth, you know.
For sure, yeah, and that was probably why the Urantia Book family is like I was actively looking for truth. I was on a forum, conspiracy theory forum called Above Top Secret, and it was, I don't remember what thread it was, but this is before I found the Urantia Book, and I was just like, all right, everything's conspiracy. Everything is like there's like all these shadowy characters just controlling the world, and well, that wasn't
it's not too far
exactly wrong, right? So, but it was just like I was inundating myself with that, and I was like, that's just not
You're hanging
the
out
way.
in the negative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's not the way out of that.
Right.
So scrolling through this thread, I don't even know why I was scrolling through it, and then all of a sudden Urantia popped out. The Urantia book popped out. One line. It's like, why is this calling to me?
Oh, okay.
I instantly Googled it, went on Amazon and bought the book right then and there.
Oh, wow.
I was like, I
So
don't know why.
you go all in pretty quick.
Yeah. If my instincts are like,
Yeah.
just do it. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. Like, what do I got to lose? Like $30? Like, who cares?
Yeah, I can relate to that.
So, and once I got it, I started reading it and didn't put it down. It took me 9 months the first time to read it through. I was at my local diner and just reading it, eating breakfast. And I was like, this is so crazy.
Cool.
Like my mind was blown every day I was reading that thing. And I was just like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I've never read anything like that before. And I got done reading it and I was like, I need to start over again and read it again.
Well, I know you're a sci-fi guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it probably helped to kind of, that was like the good conditioning before getting into the Urantia book. Because like you start reading something about like government on a neighboring planet, if you can't think outside the box.
You're like, I don't believe in aliens. It's not real.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It could be difficult to work with if you don't have a capacity or a foundation.
If you automatically just shut off those concepts. Yeah, reading sci-fi and fantasy, those are my main go-to books. And a couple of series, The Wheel of Time and The Sword of Truth, those are like 13 book series.
Oh, wow.
And but they're completely engaging the whole time. And that's the thing, is like, maybe it's that part of me that wants to escape to that realm where it's like, all right, you're the character. You can build yourself up with all these learning experiences in the book, and then you read the Urantia book, you're like, wait, I'm the character.
Yeah.
I can take all the experiences from my life and build myself up.
You're like, and I've been doing it.
Yeah, I haven't realized it, or whatever it is. Like whatever, like we all have a certain level of blinders on, especially when it comes to communicating with other people. And because communicating with other people now in this time of where we're at is most likely going to be a negative experience at this point. It can be a positive for sure. It depends on how you spin it. But for most people and what they talk about and what they complain about, everything's like, oh, this person did this to me. This person did this to me.
Yeah, lots of victimness.
Yeah.
Never like, I always love what Jesus talks about is like, put yourself aside, man. Just your salvation, take it for granted. It's going to happen. Don't worry about your problems so much. Just let it rip.
Yeah.
Just let it rip, man. You got it inside you. Just let it rip. And that's why I love sports. Like I used to play quarterback. We had an awesome team. If any of my old teammates are watching this, I love you guys. Like we were fourth in the nation. We were awesome. And I love those guys. But the camaraderie of that brotherhood, and then when you all have faith in each other to just let it rip. And I don't know if you know what let it rip means, but that means just like whatever's inside, let that baby out, and know that spirit is with you.
Open it up.
Yeah. And so I wonder, I'd love to see more people just be so courageous with their spiritual life. Like I've had family members laugh at me. I've had people and friends unfriend me because I believe in God and I love Jesus with all my heart. But like, nonetheless, that made all the difference for me too. Not because I lost friends, but because I had the courage to stand up for what I believed in.
And sometimes those are indicators that you're on the right path. When people are doubting and hating you, it's because you're being courageous and you're doing something that they aren't brave enough to do. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, now I'm going to hate you instead because it's easier. That's a lazy way to do it. And with a lot of people, it might be the deterrent for why they're not doing the things that they're doing is maybe they have some family members, even immediate family members that are like, no, don't do this. Don't do this. I'm not going to support you in this. Mm-hmm. And if you're an immediate family member, say you're like a son or a daughter or like even a niece or a nephew, and you got someone hating on you like that at a young age, like that's sad. You're just like, but it takes a lot of like courage and being special and just being like, no. I'm not going to listen to that. I'm going to be my own person. And sometimes the pull to action or your talent pulls you harder than the haters can bring you down. Because that pulls you way out of that.
And I think it's important to recognize the fact that we have a part of God within us that is always guiding us towards the truth.
Pulling us upwards.
Yeah.
Always pulling us upwards.
Yeah. Amen. Amen to that. So I think it's important that people know that, go within, like when times are tough, go within. Times are good, go within. Times are boring, go within.
Yeah.
Just go within, inward and upward, and have the confidence that it can work for you, that God loves you, that Jesus loves you, the Spirit of truth is here with you. You're in the Holy Spirit. Like, so many good things are on our side. And the fact that, we live in this material reality where you turn on Netflix and it's nothing but horror films. You go on TV and it's all bad news.
It's all
you go to the theaters and it's all purging of grossness.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, go within. That theater is good. That movie is good. The director of that film is good, and I mean it. It's good. It's beautiful. It's true. And I think the more that people like you and me and others can use our abilities that have influenced us from this beautifulness and goodness and truth that comes from divinity, we can uplift this thing, man. We can do this thing.
Absolutely. I'd like to touch up on that because that's a really good message. And where we're coming from, you gotta the inhabitants of the rest of the cosmos, they're already in that, right? They already are like, what do you mean? How can things be worse than this? Like, this is great. And we're here going through isolation and quarantine, and be like, all we know is like being put down and being held down, and like, but that's a symptom of quarantine. So we're coming and we're beating the odds. Yeah, and we're beating that. It's like there are forces at play to keep us held back. Sure, it's happening. Otherwise, we wouldn't be tested if there weren't.
There are also, I would say, benevolent forces at bay keeping us back too.
Yes.
Okay.
Like a parent.
Yeah, that's important for us to understand as well.
Well, that's what quarantine is.
Right.
It's like they're like, you guys aren't ready to play with the rest of the universe right now.
Time out.
You kind of messed up the sandbox, and you need to be, put in time out, like you said, and just for a little bit, only for like on a cosmic sense. Like, what is 1,000 years, right? What is 1,000 years? It's way beyond you and I. We won't live that.
Right.
But if that's what the time of quarantine is, and for a time of evolution for us to get out of that and be able to play in the rest of the cosmos, then that's what it is. That's how we have to learn.
Well, I agree with that. And that's why I feel like I can do my part now.
Yes,
to help them coming up.
Like we're put here.
Yeah.
We don't have any other choice. We are put here. So to help contribute to a positive message and make things creatively, or just to create, then that's good. And even whatever you're creating, if you think it's like garbage or whatever, keep doing it. If you're driven to do it, keep doing it. When I first started making music, it was crazy. It was terrible. But I didn't let that stop me, because I was like, all right, well, it is what it is. But the more I created, the more I can refine and learn how to refine what I'm creating, then it just gets better from there.
Cool.
So I wouldn't want anybody to be deterred from doing that, especially because I've experienced personally members of my family hating on what I was doing. It's like, you're never going to amount to anything. You're never going to be that. Like, you're going to grow up and you're going to hate yourself and whatever it is. Sounds like a projection to me, but
we've all been there, man.
Exactly. I was like, but the driving force inside of me was like, no, that's not a thing. And now, like, I'm not successful by any means of any like standard means. I'm successful to myself because I'm able to create at a level that I deem likable, at least. I like what I'm doing, but maybe my stuff won't get discovered for like 80 years down the road or whatever, or people won't even like, no one's listening to my stuff right now. Like, maybe a few people. Exactly. I mean, but that's not going to stop me.
Right. And it shouldn't. And I'm a big fan of Akhenaten, from ancient Egypt, and the Urantia Book talks about Akhenaten a lot. And he had one generation, man, and they smashed his stuff. People couldn't even understand what he was talking about. Only like the highly educated few. But, he went too fast, too far. But nonetheless, he didn't compromise. He moved the capital of Egypt from Thebes to Amarna, and like, he did not mess around. He changed the artwork, changed the religion. He's like, no, I'm being led towards monotheism, and this is gonna freaking happen. Now
was chosen to do so.
Now his son didn't quite keep up with it, and they kind of slipped back into the whole naturalness of Osiris and Isis and Horus and stuff like that.
Yep.
But nonetheless, it's like we see history of these people who are like rockets just, and they set the trend for a little bit. Doesn't last long.
No.
And they're usually hated.
Yeah.
So like Akhenaten, after he died, they smashed all of his artwork, all of his statues. Like they just destroyed it. You can't even tell it's his face. Only a few you can find, right? I did a paper on it. It's on Facebook. You can check it out.
Nice.
And it's on Urantia University. Little shameless plug.
Nice.
But I do love Urantia University. You guys are awesome. And so now let's look back. Let's look back at all the revelations, whether it's personal that came out to be a public way like Akhenaten, or whether it's epical revelation like Melchizedek and Adam and Eve and stuff like that. All of them have been attacked.
Yes.
Not one of them, not one, even the Urantia Book has not been attemptedly smashed, right? Like, let's go through it.
For real. Yeah.
Let's go through it. All right, so you got the first epical revelation on this planet. Prince Caligastia, the planetary prince, and his corporeal staff. We find out that corporeal staff ends up being the Anunnaki, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And what did they do? They slipped into rebellion. More
Yes.
than half of them slipped into rebellion. So they started smashing Van, right? Who was actually representing revelation.
It's like, no.
Yeah.
He was steadfast. That's,
Right,
Yeah.
and he held strong.
Yep.
That's the award up there. That's an awesome one. Nonetheless. All right, so then the second one. Adam and Eve come down here, persecuted. Every time they left the garden, persecuted.
They're
right?
waiting for him in an ambush outside the garden. It was crazy.
Right. Okay, and then they default. Their children leave. Most of them leave, right? Just Adamson's left. He ends up having secondary midwares with Rata. Pretty kinky.
Where are they?
Maybe they're here. Who knows?
Exactly.
Nonetheless, that ideology was smashed continually for so long that this planet was on such darkness that Macaventa Melchizedek petitioned for an emergency bestowal mission onto this planet. He's like, look, it's so dark. It's so bad. I need to kick it up a notch so that when Michael comes here as Jesus, we'll have something to work with, right?
Right.
And then what has come from that? Those three circles, man, they've been smashed for a while. It's like even the Hebrews, they were too fetishized. Like those circles, they're like, no, it's too taboo. We're not even going to share this,
Yep.
right? So that gets hidden. And then these Melchizedek teachings and the Salem teachings, they get a little bit hidden. But nonetheless, you see their influence. You see Akhenaten, you see Moses, you see people step up. And that's what I'm talking about, where there's this skyrocketing, these big blips in the radar.
They're
right?
because they're so beyond what the conventional thought is of what existence is. It's like, no, it's not. There's something beyond the veil. There's something on the other side of the veil. I know it's there. And I don't care what you have to say is
It's not gonna stop me.
I know it's there. And then there's nothing on the other side of the veil. I mean,
Right.
Wizard of Oz is a good parable for
yeah,
that, right?
yeah.
There's pay no attention to what's on the other side of the veil.
Right.
And you lift it up and it's like, oh my God, everything is so familiar and everything is so great.
It's just a dude.
Yeah. Wait, it's just my dad.
It's just a dude hanging out back there. But yeah, I mean, so if we continue on that timeline, we go forward, and obviously Jesus was persecuted. I mean, you don't have to talk to too many people.
Everyone
to
knows that. Even if you don't believe him, you know he was.
I mean, he was
Yeah.
persecuted by his own brethren.
Yeah.
I mean, he was Jewish, and it's not like the authorities of the Jewish Sanhedrin were like Jesus, man. They were out
No.
for him. That's why he died.
Yeah.
They went out for him because he took away this authority on something that's so free as the spirit, and they killed him for it.
It's kind of sad because they proclaim this authority, but what about themselves? What about when they finally go to the other side? It's like, what were you thinking?
Oh, supreme embarrassment.
Yeah. You're gonna have to get over that. You're gonna be humbled.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You're not in the position that you thought you were in the material realm, and you clung to that.
Yeah.
So hard. It's like that was nothing. Those guys are long gone. The Pharisees, right?
Sure.
The original, the OG Pharisees.
Right.
They're gone. They're done. At least as far as in this realm. It's like, for what? Why are you doing? You're clinging on to power until you die, and then you're dead.
Yeah.
Then you're gone. It's
Well, I think it works on this thing. It's really important to understand is having capacity. So spirit you just won't have capacity for something to fit. So there's something in the Urantia Book talks about, it says you can't fit a quart in a pint, right? You just can't.
right.
Right. And so when some people are so materialistically minded that they don't have that spiritual fulcrum, that spiritual thread or roadway that then spirit can then weave onto, right? So you're really more animalistic type.
Right.
And so that, thank God that we have these opportunities with the Spirit of Truth that we can weave this wonderful thread of co-creation with divinity. So thank God we have this. It would have been such a challenge to be living on this planet at the time when Jesus was living on this planet, before the Spirit of Truth, before the universal outpouring of thought adjusters. We don't realize how
possessed.
And you could, a simple-minded person could be possessed. I mean, you talked about the ghost world and stuff, but that was the spiritual pressures and temptations for everyone. It was more of like the horror film stuff. And now we're so privileged that we can just, like I said, let it rip. Like we really can. It's like the doorway's open.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not much, especially in America, there's not much limiting us for free speech. We can openly talk about whatever we want.
Oh, yeah.
And even the people that are advocating against free speech are talking about whatever they want because they're talking about limiting someone else's free speech. Well, you've been given the privilege to talk about that. You've been given the privilege to talk about how I don't want you to have free speech, basically.
Yeah, I've seen lately we have a tendency to where we slip back into our natural comfort zones.
Yeah.
Instead of be courageous in how we can communicate with one another.
Yeah, a lot of that comes from fear, where it's like, whatever forces to be or whatever powers to be are pressuring you to go against free speech. Say you're at a level of government where you have the authority to make a vote on whether free speech should be a thing or not, right? Okay. And you vote against it. There's something, you're getting pressure from that somewhere because you have inside of you have the free speech to be even in your position. You have that. Right.
Yeah, that liberty.
You have that liberty. Yeah. Exactly. You have the liberty to be of authority on free speech. So for you to vote against it makes you a little bit hypocritical.
Yeah.
Which comes in equivocation and all the things that we're talking about.
Well, yeah, let's talk about that because I used to do this podcast called The Cosmic Citizen. Last year, we were talking about the Lucifer Rebellion, and some of the things that really stood out to me for the Lucifer Rebellion is that Gabriel was basically running the prosecution, right?
Right.
And it was Gabriel versus Lucifer, essentially, right? That. But he was getting advisement from these like finaliters who had dealt with a rebellion already. And what they were advising him was like, look, don't try to squash his messages on any level. Like, allow free speech to happen. This is full sin expression. And this will lead to the expression and the dealing with of this sin quicker than if you try to suppress it. And so now here we're looking at a society where there is a little bit of suppression of opinions that disagree with whatever personal opinions are being stated. So it looks to me like a little bit of suppression. Mm-hmm. And I feel like maybe that's not conducive to what Gabriel was advised to do.
Right. It's kind of like sin whack-a-mole. There it is. There it is.
Right.
It's popping up, and people are just trying to, cover it up.
Well, you look at like a parent teaching a child to do good. You don't teach them not to do bad. Or like if the child's whole curriculum is just being punished for every time they messed up and not reinforced for every time they did well.
Right.
Then all they learn is like paralysis. They're like, I'm not going to do anything.
Well, you're putting the limitations where you're setting boundaries and limitations where it's like, all right, I can't do anything.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, no, like you express yourself in this way. I'm encouraging you. I was blessed with parents to be encouraging to what I was doing. They found out that at a young age that I was into music and doing it, nothing but support. No matter what it is, it's just like, and it was mostly just emotional support where it's like, don't stop doing what you're doing. Do it. Whatever you're doing, you have talent for this, do it. And that was huge in my platform for doing what I do in music. And that's what it's going to take. And if you're a person that is in that realm and it's looking to do something like that, and you're not getting that support, find it. Go out there, like keep doing it, and you'll find people that'll be like, yeah, man, I love what you're doing. Then take support from that. You're gonna have to, because if you're not getting it from anywhere else, then it's gonna really play you. It's really gonna bring you down, And then you dwell on that. You don't want to be a person that's going to dwell on like what you can't do. Most people dwell on what they can't do.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, when I look on social media, there's a lot of people who are kind of comparing themselves with each other and stuff like that instead of really embracing their God-given strengths, God-given abilities, and what they've worked on. Now, a lot of that guilt and resentment might come from the fact that maybe they're coming to grips with the fact that they haven't worked on anything or worked on themselves really, too.
Right. They're going to have to come to terms with that. Be like, well, it's my fault for not at least trying, at least putting myself out there, and at least exploring my own mind. Like, what is it that I feel like a lot of people feel like, what is it that I'm supposed to do? I'm sure there's a lot of people out there like, please tell me, guide me, whatever it is. I want to do something. I feel the call to action, but I don't know what it is. It's not really on anybody else to be like, I don't know what you're supposed to do.
I know.
You got to find that out.
Yeah.
Whether that is just try new things, whatever it is, go out and try things that you've never done before, get uncomfortable. And you might find something that is like, whoa, I'm really called to do that, no matter what it is. I can't say what it is.
Right.
But just, if you don't know what it is, try as wide of a range of topics or experiences that you can get your hands on and that you have access to, and just go for it. Don't be afraid to do that.
I agree with that. And I'd also say that, there's something to be had with going back to when you were a child, like before you even got into school or whatever. And what drove you then? Like what was leading you then before you were so conditioned? That ideology, just kind of working with that, like to get to that core of your creative inspiration.
And if you don't know, your parents will know.
Yeah.
They'll tell you, you used to do this all the time. When it was me, it's like you used to play with your toys around the house, blowing on a harmonica all day long. In and out. That was me.
Yeah, so you can get insight. I mean, I'll let you in on some personal info. I mean, when I was a kid, I grew up with just my mom and my sister in Chicago. And like when I was 4, my mom was awesome by reading the Urantia Book. She didn't share the Urantia Book with us, but she shared like the lifestyle with us. I used to dress up like Perseus for the ancient Greek myths.
Nice.
And she'd send me on quests into like the darkest corners of the basement.
As a kid, that takes a lot of courage.
Dude, at 4 years old,
I ain't going to the darkest
you go to the back corner of the basement, right? And
you come running back up the stairs.
Yeah, well, she'd be like, I need you to bring me the sacred hammer from the back corner of the basement or whatever like that. But like, God bless her, man, because what that reminds me of is that like the Urantia Book always talks about parents need to have positive heroes and role models for their children and help their children choose good heroes, And I look at our society now, and though it's challenging here because those who truly were heroic, maybe they're painted as not as heroic as they really were, but nonetheless, my mom did a good job. Love you. And I think that other parents can do that as well as we can do that for each other, is this motivation of heroic inspiration in each other by what we have to work with. Just taking what we have to work with and maybe adding just a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Always adding whatever you can, because you're trying to build upon the foundation that you're giving. And that's how we are. That's why we're here as a society. We have been building upon the foundations that we've been given.
Yeah.
And refining and make it better. Yeah. We wouldn't have cell phones without that. We wouldn't have buildings without that.
Yeah.
Skyscrapers, anything that you look at in modern day society is all been built upon what we've been given and try to make it better.
Right. And I think that, well, I know that that's how epical revelation like the Urantia Book works, is that it works on evolution. It's like you reach your apex of certain thinking or biological evolution, and then bam, divinity reaches down and says, okay, here's a revelation. Here's the next step. We're going to pop you up another level because we love you.
Yeah, what's that next step? That's really cool to think about.
Yeah.
It's like we don't know at this point, because since the Urantia Book was in conceived or incepted, not much as far as the way of thinking has been changed. It's been a power structure and a power struggle, especially financially and with our form of government and the form of global governance. It's been pretty much the same. It's like, all right, we need to be successful. We need to make money. We need to build all these things. It's like, all right, well, now how it's time for a change. How do we get into the Star Trek future? You know, it's like, that's a cool future. I want to be a part of that.
Well,
like,
the question is like, we also have to be aware not to just shortcut, right? So we think like, okay, let's just go from like, not everyone can learn how to read to all of a sudden we're skipping universes through time portals. You know what I mean? Like,
what did you read to get there? I don't know.
it's like all of my own physical development. I couldn't do things unless I had the capacity to do the other things before that. You know, like that. So I just wonder. That's my girlfriend calling. I love you, honey.
It's a beautiful ringtone.
But it is. But nonetheless, I'm sure it'll stop soon. Talk to Jeremy for a second.
Nice.
Well, I think we should be getting out of here, man. And it's just been amazing to hang out with you. And I know that there's plenty more stuff coming from you in your creative world. For you guys, heads up, Urantia Book Network's coming up with a lot of new creative videos. And Jeremy's a huge part of it as far as scoring and doing the soundtrack. So I'm just excited and so thankful that you're here, man.
There's a lot of stuff coming out next year, I feel. Like what I'm working on now and what we're working on with people like Gary Tonge and visual artists like that, and what's coming out in 2020, Vancouver. Like there's a lot of cool stuff that's going to be happening around the corner, I feel. So
I look forward to having the Urantia community movement, whatever it is, just being more inspirational for youth to come forward and contribute, you know.
Give them the gravitas to come out.
We got new platforms coming out for y'all.
Nice.
You know, as we move forward, there'll be new technology, new platforms, and we'll all be able to contribute. And I think that's what the Supreme asks of us, you know, so let's do it.
Doing our part.
Yeah. So, you know, God bless you, Jeremy. Thank you for everything, man. And I look forward to all the new stuff that you're coming out with. And thank you for joining us, you guys. We'll have more from Jeremy and Gary and all the other people from Urantia Book Network, and a ton of awesome guests. We got Urantia University coming here soon, and we'll have all of their awesome professors talk to us. So thanks again. Please like, share, donate, subscribe. Like I said, this is a lot easier turning your friends on the Urantia Book than just throwing a book at them. It's 2,000 pages. So thank you, Jeremy. Thanks for everything, man. God bless.
Thank you. Absolutely.
All right.